Nora Bellwether had never planned to hit a king with a broom. To be fair, he was a wolf at the time. To be even fairer, he had his royal teeth wrapped around her goat's tail, which made the matter less treason and more farm management. Moonlight lay over Brindlebrook like spilled milk. Every cottage slept under that soft white glow. Every chimney had gone quiet. Every sensible creature in the village had chosen rest. Only Nora's yard had chosen war. Matilda, Nora's gray goat, was screaming as if she had been invited to her own funeral and found the flowers inadequate. Cabbages lay crushed in the mud. A fence rail sagged sideways. The laundry line had surrendered completely, leaving 2 sheets draped over the gooseberry bushes like ghosts with poor posture. In the middle of the ruin stood the largest black wolf Nora had ever seen. His coat shone like ink. His shoulders rose almost to Nora's chest. His silver eyes looked too clever for any animal, and his jaws were closed around the tufted end of Matilda's tail. Matilda's voice arrived in Nora's mind with the force of a church bell dropped down a well. Murder. Assault. Tail crime. I demand witnesses. Nora stood barefoot in the mud with a broom in both hands. Her brown braid had half fallen apart. Her nightshift clung crookedly beneath a wool shawl. She had the sturdy, balanced shape of a woman who lifted milk pails, rolled cheese wheels, and argued with stubborn livestock before breakfast. She also had the face of a woman who had reached the end of Christian mercy. Nora pointed the broom at the wolf's nose. Drop her tail again, and I will turn you into a rug with emotional damage. The wolf released Matilda's tail. Matilda bolted behind Nora and pressed her offended body against Nora's skirt. Her mind continued producing outrage at impressive speed. He put his mouth on my personal tassel. I am a respected agricultural citizen. Nora kept the broom raised. She had been hearing Matilda for 3 years, ever since a winter fever left Nora alone in bed for 6 days with only the goat, a cracked ceiling, and a priest who kept saying things like mysterious ways. When the fever broke, Nora could hear Matilda complain about hay quality. Nora had told no one. There were many things a woman could survive in Brindlebrook: a poor harvest, a bad roof, a goat with leadership ambitions. Being known as the woman who heard livestock discuss rope texture was not one of them. The wolf lowered his head. Do not bow, Nora told him. You crushed my cabbages. The wolf inhaled. Then he froze. Not a little freeze. Not the sensible pause of a beast realizing it had chosen the wrong cottage. His whole body locked, his ears lifted, his silver eyes fixed on Nora's face with such stunned intensity that the night itself seemed to lean closer. Matilda stopped her mental screaming long enough to observe him. Oh, he has gone stupid. Nora tightened her grip on the broom. Why are you sniffing me like I owe you taxes? The wolf made a low sound. It was not a growl. That was the problem. It sounded almost tender, almost reverent, as if the moon had struck him between the ribs and he had no idea what to do with the wound. Nora took 1 step forward. Out! The wolf did not move. Matilda gave a sharp mental sniff. He is large, badly mannered, and handsome in a criminal way. I dislike this combination. Nora agreed with the goat more than she wished to admit. Out, Nora repeated, or I swear on St. Beatrice's left shoe, I will use you to line my winter boots. Behind her, Matilda sneezed. The wolf looked at the goat, then at the broom, then at Nora's bare, muddy feet, then back at Nora's face. If wolves could look helpless, this one did. Nora narrowed her eyes. Oh, do not start looking handsome at me. I have had a long day. The wolf blinked. Somewhere beyond the broken fence, a twig cracked. Nora turned toward the lane. Mist curled over the empty road. The northern wood waited beyond the last cottages, black and silent. When she turned back, the wolf was gone. Only deep paw prints remained in the cabbage patch. Matilda crept forward and bit one of the ruined leaves. Nora stared at the prints until the cold mud reached her ankles. "Wonderful," she muttered. "A thief with manners." Matilda chewed with grave bitterness. "If he returns, I want a bell. Not around my neck. Around his." By morning, half the village knew Nora had fought a wolf. By noon, Widow Pike was telling people Nora had made it kneel and apologize to her goat in Latin. By market time, the story had grown teeth of its own. Nora stood behind her cheese stall in the square and let Brindlebrook embarrass itself around her. She wore a faded green dress with sleeves rolled to her elbows, a practical apron, and an expression that had lowered prices across 3 counties. Chickens darted under carts. A dog slept under the baker's table. The air smelled of mud, onion skins, horse sweat, fresh bread, and the sharp, creamy tang of Nora's cheeses. Matilda stood tied to a post beside the stall, wearing the expression of a goat who had survived royal persecution and expected compensation. Miller Tom leaned across the counter with his cap in both hands. "They say it was a demon wolf." Nora wrapped a wedge of cheese in cloth. She did not look impressed, because Tom always looked for demons when ordinary stupidity was available. "It had fleas and poor judgment. If that makes a demon, half this village qualifies." Matilda's mental voice sharpened. "It did not have fleas. I would have noticed. It smelled like pine, storm, expensive leather, and entitlement." Nora nearly cut the cheese wrong. Miller Tom paid without arguing. That was when the market changed. It did not go silent. Markets never did. But the noise thinned. Voices fell. Boots scraped in the mud. Someone dropped an apple and left it rolling between 2 stalls. Dogs lifted their heads. Horses shifted. Matilda stopped chewing rope. A black horse entered the square. The man on its back wore a dark cloak fastened with a silver-gray wolf head clasp. 2 riders followed him. People moved away as if the air had received orders. He was tall. Not village tall, where a man became unbearable because he could reach a shelf. Tall like doorways had personally insulted him. His black hair was tied at the nape of his neck. His face was pale, sharp, and coldly beautiful. He had the body of a knight made dangerous by discipline. Broad shoulders, narrow waist. Then Nora noticed his boots. They were too clean. That was the first warning. The second was the way every dog in the market either wagged wildly or hid under a cart. The third was Matilda's sudden mental hiss. Tail criminal. Nora slowly looked up. The man stopped in front of her stall. His silver eyes met hers. He inhaled once, and his jaw tightened so hard she almost heard it. One of his riders made a strangled sound. The man lifted one hand without looking back. The rider shut his mouth. Nora rested both palms on the counter. "If you are here about the cabbage, take a number." The stranger dismounted. The market seemed to hold its breath. His boots touched mud. He stepped toward Nora's stall with the formal control of a man who had been watched all his life and had learned to make each movement worth surviving. Then he bowed. Not a nod, not a noble twitch. A full, formal bow in the mud before a cheese seller with goat hair on her sleeve. The market gasped. Matilda's mind went very still. He is bent. Good. Continue. Nora leaned forward. "Are you ill?" His voice came low and rough, like thunder trying to behave. "Nora Bellwether. People who know my name before buying cheese usually want credit." He raised his head. His silver eyes were the same eyes that had stared at her over a ruined cabbage patch. "I am Cale Thorne, Alpha King of Blackpine." Another gasp crossed the square. This one had more fear in it. Everyone knew Blackpine Keep. It stood beyond the northern wood, where wolves sang in winter and honest travelers did not linger. The Thorn Kings ruled the mountain packs and hidden valleys. People said the Blackpine court had more secrets than windows. People also said Alpha King Kale Thorn was cursed, cruel, unmarried, beautiful in the way sharp things were beautiful. Nora glanced at his face. The beautiful part was annoying. Kale looked past her stall at Matilda, who was tied to the post and chewing rope with criminal focus. I wish to purchase your goat. Matilda lifted her head. Nora folded her arms. She is not for sale. Name your price. 50 gold crowns. The crowd hissed with delight. Kale did not blink. Done. Nora's smile slipped. Matilda's mind became deeply interested. I am worth more. Nora corrected herself quickly. And you repair my roof. Done. And replace 3 cabbages. Done. And apologize to Matilda. The market died so completely that the chickens became loud. One of Kale's riders leaned forward with real horror in his voice. Your Majesty, surely not. Kale ignored him. He stepped around the stall, lowered himself to one knee before Matilda, and bowed his head. Matilda, the Alpha King said with the grave respect of a man addressing a duchess. I regret the damage caused to your tail and dignity. Matilda bleated directly into his face. Nora heard the translation in her mind with painful clarity. Accepted, under protest. Bring oats. Nora tried to hold in her laugh. She failed. It burst out sharp and bright. Kale turned his head toward her, still on one knee in the mud, and for one heartbeat the cold king vanished. His silver eyes warmed. Not much. Just enough to be dangerous. Nora stopped laughing. Something tugged under her ribs. She disliked it immediately. Fine, she said, before the market could notice too much. You may rent her for 1 day. Rent means she comes back. Kale rose with the dignity of a man who had not just apologized to livestock. I know what rent means. You bowed to a goat. I am not making assumptions. One rider coughed into his fist. The sound might have been a laugh trying to escape prison. Kale stepped close enough that Nora caught the scent of pine smoke, clean leather, and something wild beneath cold air. Only then did his gaze drop to the mud still dried along Matilda's left hoof. The cold king returned in a blink. He pointed to a dark smear near the hoof's edge, too black to be ordinary dirt. That is why I came, he said quietly. Nora looked down despite herself. Matilda lifted the hoof with theatrical reluctance. The smear smelled bitter even to Nora's human nose, like crushed weeds left too long in a locked chest. Kale's riders went very still behind him. Wolfsbane oil, Kale said. Silver Veil uses it to hide their trail from wolves. Your goat stepped in it last night. Matilda's mind filled with outrage. My hoof has been made evidence without consent. Nora absorbed that, then looked back at Kale. So you wanted to buy my goat because my goat is a crime scene. Kale admitted he had intended to inspect the residue. Nora reminded him that he had opened with purchase, which was not the same thing. For one bleak second, the Alpha King looked less like a ruler of hidden wolves and more like a man who had lost a debate to a cheese seller in front of poultry. I panicked. That confession did more damage to Nora's composure than any polished answer could have. You are not what I expected. Nora tied the cheesecloth tighter than necessary. Good. Expectations are lazy. His gaze searched her face as if he had lost something there and found it. They are often wrong. Then he left before she could answer. Matilda watched him go with unwelcome satisfaction. Nora pointed at the goat. Do not look pleased. He only likes you because you are rude. Matilda began chewing the rope again. Rudeness is a leadership skill. The next morning, Alpha King Kale Thorn sent roofmen. By afternoon, Nora's cottage had 3 new shingles and an audience. Widow Pike watched from behind curtains. Miller Tom passed the gate 6 times with no sack to carry. Even the priest wandered by and announced that forgiveness was a noble virtue while looking directly at Nora's goat. Matilda tried to eat his sleeve. Nora did not stop her. By the end of the week, Kale had sent cabbage seedlings, oats, a new latch for the goat pen, and one velvet cloak so fine that Nora used it to cover cheese. The village lost its senses. Widow Pike began using the phrase royal courtship while pretending not to. Miller Tom offered to carry water. The priest mentioned marriage during Sunday service while looking directly at Nora. Nora ignored everyone until Kale appeared at her gate near sunset. She was fixing a fence rail with a hammer between her teeth. The sky glowed rose behind the fields. The northern woods stood black beyond the last strip of pasture. Matilda supervised from the cabbage patch. Nora removed the hammer. "Do you practice looming, or does it come naturally?" Kale stood outside her gate in a dark riding coat, no crown, no armor. Wind had loosened black hair around his face. He looked like trouble dressed for a funeral. Kale explained, with grave sincerity, that he had knocked. Nora looked at the gate, then at him, until he added that it had seemed polite. Matilda's mind sniffed. He is nervous. His shoulders are doing the stone thing. Nora looked at Kale's shoulders. They did, in fact, look like they were trying to become architecture. Kale glanced toward the northern road before speaking. "Come to Blackpine Keep tomorrow. Bring your cheese." "Absolutely not." He did not appear surprised. If anything, some quiet part of him seemed to have expected resistance and found it steadying. He warned her that the road near Brindlebrook had become unsafe. Nora reminded him that roads were always unsafe because men insisted on using them, but Kale did not smile. Something was hunting near her village. Nora's fingers tightened around the hammer. "Something like your midnight wolf?" Kale's face became very still. Nora watched him. Matilda stopped chewing and pointed both ears toward the gate. "It was you," Nora said. He did not deny it. The goats in the neighboring yard continued eating as if kings being wolves were common weather. "Why were you in my yard?" Nora asked. Kale looked toward the wood and his voice dropped into a lower register. "I was tracking a scent." "With your teeth on my goat?" "The goat attacked first." Nora stared at him. Kale looked back with the dignity of a man prepared to defend a lie against heaven. "She is vicious." Matilda was delighted. Truth at last. Nora laughed before she could stop herself. The sound softened Kale's eyes, which was more frightening than the wolf. "What are you?" Nora asked. Kale's gaze moved again to the trees. "Come tomorrow. I will answer where no one can hear." Nora informed him that private answers in remote places were how women ended up buried in forests. Kale did not rise to that. He only looked at Matilda. "Bring Matilda." Nora recognized the tactic and disliked that it worked. "Using my goat as insurance against murder is low." Kale's mouth moved. It was not quite a smile, but it had considered the idea. "Effective?" "Unfortunately." Matilda chose that moment to ram Kale in the thigh. He did not move. The goat stepped back, impressed despite herself. Dense, possibly useful. Nora nodded as if she had received a formal report. Nora reported that Matilda would cooperate for oats. Kale agreed too quickly, and Nora warned him not to spoil a goat who already believed she outranked the mayor. Kale looked at Matilda, then at Nora. "Does she?" Nora thought of the mayor's speeches, which had the texture of wet flour. "Often." Blackpine Keep rose from the mountain road like a secret made of stone. Dark banners snapped above the gate, each marked with a wolf head on deep green cloth. Pine forest pressed close around the walls. The air smelled of resin, wet rock, and distant snow. Nora arrived in a cart with 3 cheese wheels, 1 hidden knife, and 1 goat who had opinions about mountain travel. "The road is arrogant. It keeps going up." Nora tightened the reins. "The mountain is not doing this at you." Matilda glared at a passing pine. All vertical things are suspicious. At the gate, armed guards watched Nora approach. They were all tall, too graceful under armor. Their eyes followed her with unsettling focus. One guard sniffed. Nora pointed at him. "Do that again, and I charge a fee." The guard turned red. Matilda approved. "Charge double. He has cheekbones." An old woman in a fur-lined cloak met Nora in the courtyard. White hair circled her head in braids. Her dark eyes were sharp enough to cut thread. "You are smaller than I expected," the woman said. Nora stepped down and brushed straw from her skirt. "You are ruder than I hoped." The courtyard stilled. The old woman's mouth twitched. The old woman introduced herself as Elswith. Nora gave her own name in return and received the unsettling news that everyone in the courtyard already knew it. Nora called that creepy. Elswith called it accurate. Nora decided she might like Elswith if she survived her. The doors to the great hall opened. Cale stepped out. The courtyard changed around him. Guards straightened. Servants lowered their eyes. Even Matilda paused while chewing the corner of a banner. Cale wore a black tunic with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. His cold, handsome face gave nothing away. His gaze found Nora and stayed. She lifted one hand. "Your banner tastes expensive. I will inform the weavers." Matilda's mental voice turned reverent. Silk thread. Possibly tribute. Elswith looked from Nora to Cale with the expression of a woman watching a storm arrive on schedule. "Feed her," Elswith said. Nora put a hand on her own stomach. When Nora claimed she had eaten breakfast, Elswith gave her a flat look and clarified that she meant the goat. Nora admitted that Matilda ate better than she did. Cale came down the steps. The hard lines of his face did not soften, but his voice did. "Then both of you will eat." Nora called him bossy under her breath. Cale answered that hungry people made poor decisions, which sounded like something carved above a barracks kitchen. "Fed people make expensive ones." His mouth twitched. The great hall of Blackpine Keep was warm and enormous. Fire roared in a hearth big enough to roast an ox. Long tables held bread, roasted meat, apples, stew, and cream thick enough to shame milk. Voices dropped when Nora entered. The silence traveled ahead of her like a servant with no manners. Nora noticed no silver cups, no silver plates, no silver knife handles. She stored that thought carefully. A blond man with narrow features bowed as Cale led her toward the high table. "Your Majesty, is this the human?" Nora answered before Cale could. "No. I am 3 ducks in a dress." Someone choked on wine. Cale did not smile. His eyes did, which was worse. "Cedric," Cale said, "this is Nora Bellwether." Cedric stiffly claimed he had meant no offense, and Nora advised him to aim better next time. Elswith laughed once behind them. Cale pulled out the chair beside his. The hall noticed. Nora noticed the hall noticing. She sat anyway, because refusing would make her look nervous, and she would rather swallow a thistle. Servants placed food before her. Too much food. Golden bread, roasted fowl, honeyed carrots, apples and spiced syrup. A bowl of oats appeared near Matilda, who had been given a place by the side door under protest from everyone except herself. Matilda stared into the oat bowl. At last, civilization. Nora stared at the table. "Is this supper or a surrender?" "Eat," Cale said. She looked at him. "Do not use soup voice at me." A tiny pause crossed his face. "Please eat." "Better." Whispers moved around the hall. Human, mate, impossible, Luna. The last word kept returning like a fly in summer. Nora turned to Cale. "What is a Luna?" His hand stilled beside his cup. "Later." Later is where people hide bad news. His voice lowered. It was meant for her alone, but the hall had gone quiet enough to collect dust. "Then trust me until the stars are out." He did not look afraid. His fingers did. They had curled into a fist on the table. Nora saw it. She did not know what to do with it. Matilda, from the side door, offered her assessment. "He is terrified and pretending it is posture." Nora stared at her plate to keep from staring at Cale. "Fine," she said, "but if the bad news wears poetry, I am leaving." After supper, Kale took her to the battlements. The forest below spread black and endless. Torches snapped in the wind. Stars burned over the mountains like cold pinpricks. Somewhere in the courtyard, Matilda bleated with the confidence of a goat being fed above her station. Nora leaned against the stone wall. "If you brought me up here to throw me off, I scream insults on the way down." Kale did not answer in kind. He simply moved to the wall and looked out over the black line of the forest. The restraint in him made the cold feel sharper. "I brought you here to answer." Nora joined him at the stone edge, keeping one cautious arm's length between them. "Then answer." Kale looked out over the trees. "The wolf in your yard was me." Nora waited for her knees to fail. They did not. Her heart hammered, but her feet stayed planted. "I guessed that when your eyes matched the goat thief." "I am a werewolf." The word passed between them and vanished into the wind. Nora looked down at the courtyard, then back at him. "That explains the sniffing." Kale blinked. He seemed to need a moment with the fact that her first response to werewolves was an observation about sniffing. Nora asked whether screaming would improve the conversation. When he admitted it would not, she advised him to appreciate her restraint. His mouth softened. Only for a moment. "Many in this keep are like me," he said. "Our kind live hidden. Human kings fear us. Priests burn what they cannot control. Hunters sell silver and call it courage." Nora thought of the missing silver in the hall. Now she knew the secret hidden under the warm hall and polished manners. Kale did not insult her by pretending otherwise. When Nora asked what would happen if she told, his first answer was only a flat warning not to do it. Nora gave him a look sharp enough to cut thread. That was not an answer. Kale's jaw tightened. His breath left him slowly, white in the cold. "It is the answer I can bear to give you." The hurt in that sentence was quiet. Nora heard it anyway. Nora understood then that someone in the keep would hurt her. Kale admitted that some would demand it, and she asked where he stood. He turned to her fully. "I would stand between you and every blade in this keep." No flourish, no noble performance, only truth, laid down like a weapon. Nora swallowed. "Why?" Kale's silver eyes held hers. "Because you are my mate." Matilda bleated in the courtyard below. The sound floated upward with perfect timing. Nora closed her eyes. "Your timing is terrible," she called down. Kale looked startled. "The goat?" Nora kept her eyes on the courtyard below. "Yes." Understanding moved across Kale's face. "You can understand her." Nora opened one eye. "I can understand many things. Most of them are rude." For the first time since they had climbed the battlements, Kale looked less like a king and more like a man trying not to reach for a miracle too quickly. He asked how long, in a voice carefully stripped of greed. Nora told him 3 years. When he asked whether Matilda spoke often, Nora looked down at the goat now attempting to intimidate a stable boy through posture alone. "She has never stopped." The courtyard below produced another bleat. Nora sighed. "She says your castle has poor hay placement." Kale's face went completely still. Then, very carefully, he said, "I will have that corrected." Nora stared at him. "You are not supposed to encourage her." Kale did not apologize. He said Matilda was Nora's witness with the same grave weight another king might have given a council seal. Nora reminded him that Matilda was a goat with delusions of office. Kale's answer was only one word. Still. That single word landed with unsettling weight. Nora looked away first. Kale did not push. He let the cold wind move between them before he explained what mate meant among werewolves. A fated bond. A recognition of wolf and soul. Not ownership. Not a command. Not permission to steal a woman's life. Nora listened with her arms folded. He added one more thing before Nora could answer. In old werewolf law, a true mate bond was not only romance. It could anchor a wolf through poison, grief, or madness. It was rare, dangerous, and never meant to be taken by force. Nora noticed the way he would not quite look at her when he said that last part. When he finished, she looked at him for a long moment. Nora told him it was a terrible explanation. Cale accepted that and said it was the most honest one he had. She looked toward the courtyard, where Matilda was still enjoying oats purchased by Royal Panic. Your wolf recognized me while committing goat crime. Cale did not defend himself. He only admitted it was true, which Nora called romantic in the driest voice she owned. He answered that he had not chosen the circumstances. Nora's next question escaped before pride could stop it. Did you choose me? Cale answered too quickly. No. The word stung before she could brace for it. He saw it. He stepped forward, then stopped himself before closing the distance. But I choose how I treat you, he said. Werewolves know through scent and instinct. Humans do not feel that signal. I have known since your yard, you have not. That is not fair, and I will not pretend it is. Nora folded her arms tighter to keep her hands steady. She told him, one careful point at a time, that she did not belong to him. She was not a prophecy with legs. She was not a prize his wolf could drag home and set beside the hearth. Cale accepted each statement without argument. That steadied her enough to give him the final warning aloud. If you ever say mine in a tone I dislike, I will make you eat soap. Understood. Matilda's distant voice rose in Nora's mind, carried somehow through familiarity rather than distance. Make it lie, soap. Nora almost smiled. Almost. She had never heard Matilda so clearly from so far away before. The realization unsettled her. Later she would blame the keep's old stone, or the bond waiting under her skin, or the fact that Matilda had the spiritual volume of a church bell. Good, she said. Now show me. Cale's brows drew together. He understood that she meant the wolf, and he also understood she was afraid. Nora did not deny it. She only folded her arms tighter and gave him the plain truth. That is why I want to see. Fear grows teeth in the dark. Cale removed his coat, then his tunic. Nora's mouth opened before she could stop it. His body was all controlled power. Broad chest, scarred shoulders, hard arms. 8 precise ridges cut across his stomach in the torchlight, as if a sculptor had become obsessed and no one had intervened. That seems unnecessary, Nora said. Cale explained that clothes tore during a shift. Nora clarified with heroic restraint that she had meant his stomach. Color touched his cheekbones. Saints preserve me, she muttered. The change rolled over him like shadow spilling across stone. Bones shifted, muscles rippled, black fur swept over skin. Hands struck the battlement as paws. The air filled with heat, pine, and storm. Then the black wolf stood before her, huge, silver-eyed, magnificent. He lowered his head, offering. Nora stepped close and placed one trembling hand between his ears. His fur was warm and soft. You are very plush for a disaster. The wolf huffed. A scream rose from the courtyard. Cale's head snapped toward it. Steel rang below. Men shouted. A horse shrieked. Matilda bellowed in Nora's mind with offended glory. Intruders! Bad cloaks! Worse boots! Someone kicked my oat bowl. The black wolf leapt down the stairs, and Nora ran after him with her skirts in both hands. The courtyard had become chaos. Gray-cloaked attackers poured through a side gate. Later, Nora would learn the gate opened onto an old hunter's path and should have been sealed for winter. Someone had cut the iron bar from the inside and packed the hinges with wolfsbane paste, hiding the scent until the first attackers were already through. At that moment, all Nora knew was that silver flashed in their hands. Blackpine guards fought with swords, claws, and half-shifted faces. Firelight struck gold in their eyes. The air smelled of smoke, sweat, hot metal, and the bitter bite of wolfsbane. One attacker saw Nora. The human! he charged. Nora grabbed the nearest object, which happened to be a copper chamber pot. She threw it with both hands. It struck his forehead with a glorious clang. "I warned no one," she said, "but I meant that." The black wolf crashed through 3 men at once. Kale moved like night with teeth. He drove attackers back from the hall, the stables, and Nora. At the far gate, a pale-haired woman lifted a crossbow. The bolt gleamed silver. Nora saw where it pointed. "Kale, down!" The wolf turned at her voice. The bolt struck his shoulder. His roar shook the stones. Nora's blood went cold. Kale staggered. His shape broke and twisted. Black fur withdrew in ragged waves. He hit the ground in human form, blood dark around the silver bolt. Nora ran. An attacker grabbed her braid. Pain tore across her scalp. She drove her elbow backward, stomped his foot, and when he still did not release her, bit his wrist. He howled. "Yes," she snapped. "Horrible, isn't it?" Elswith appeared beside her, eyes gold and hands clawed. "Get him inside." Nora bent under Kale's weight with Elswith's help. "I was planning a picnic, but fine." They dragged Kale into the hall while battle raged behind them. He was heavy, too heavy. His body burned with fever heat. His face, so cold and controlled before, twisted with pain. They laid him on a table. Nora pressed cloth to the wound while Elswith ripped the bolt free. Kale arched with a sound that cut straight through Nora's chest. She snapped at Elswith before fear could swallow her. "Careful." Elswith did not look up. "It is silver. Careful is dead." Matilda's voice broke into Nora's mind from somewhere near the stable. "The pale woman smells like frozen knives and smugness. I dislike her hair." Nora pressed harder against the wound. "Everyone here dislikes everything at once." Kale's hand closed around Nora's wrist. His eyes opened, fever bright. "Nora, do not say my name like a farewell. I hate that." His mouth curved faintly. "Bossy. Alive men may complain later." Elswith sniffed the wound and swore under her breath. "Silver poison," the old woman said, "mixed with wolfsbane. It is meant to sever him from his wolf." Nora's stomach dropped. "Then fix it." Elswith looked at Kale. Kale's voice came sharp through clenched teeth. "No." Nora looked between them. "I dislike being the only person without the terrible secret." Kale tried to sit. His muscles shook. Nora shoved him down with one palm on his chest. "Stay." He stayed. Even Elswith looked impressed. Kale's breath dragged through his teeth. Elswith explained the old way in plain words because Nora was not in a mood for ceremony. The mate bond could steady a wounded wolf. A mark could anchor Kale long enough for his body to fight the poison. Nora touched the side of her neck. A bite. Kale's voice turned rougher. A choice. He looked worse by the second. Sweat darkened his hair at the temples. His fingers trembled around hers. The cold Alpha King had vanished, and beneath him was a man fighting not to ask for what might save him. "You would feel me," he said. "I would feel you. Not every thought, not every moment, but enough." Nora did not look away. She forced him to finish the part he clearly hated. The mark would put her under Blackpine law. It would bind her to secrecy. It would also make her protected before his pack. Protected by the same pack where some people might vote to kill me if I gossip. Yes. He did not soften it. Somehow that made it better and worse. "One day, the bond may lead to turning," Kale said. "A different body, a different life, longer years, different hunger. It is irreversible. It is not a debt. It is not a cure for fear. It must be chosen." Outside, fighting still roared. Blood darkened the cloth beneath Nora's palm. Kale's eyes stayed on hers. "I will not take that choice from you. You are dying. Then I die having not stolen your life." Nora stared at him. Of all the absurdities of the week, that was the worst. "That is the stupidest noble thing you have said," she told him, "and you once apologized to a goat." "Nora." "No." You listen. She leaned close enough to see sweat at his temple and fear behind his eyes. I am not agreeing to grow fur tonight. I am not signing my soul over because silver-licking cowards ruin supper. But if a mark keeps you alive, then you may mark me. Kale tried once more to warn her that it was not small. Nora looked pointedly at his very large, very dying body on the table. When he said she might regret it, she told him she regretted many things already, mostly trusting Matilda near laundry. Fear tightened through the bond. This is serious. Her throat tightened. I know. For 3 seconds, neither moved. Then Nora pushed her braid over one shoulder and bared the side of her neck. You make it sound like a wedding bill. Do it. But if I start growing hair in strange places, you are responsible for grooming. Elswith made a sound that might have been a laugh. Kale's eyes turned more wolf than man. Tell me to stop, and I stop. If I tell you while your teeth are in my neck, be quick about it. He pulled her down with shaking hands. Even half dead, he touched her as if she were precious and breakable. Nora wanted to snap that she was not glass. Then his fingers trembled at her waist, and the words would not come. The bite was brief. Pain flashed, bright and clean. Heat followed. It rushed through Nora's veins like fire through dry pine. It filled her chest, her hands, and the hollow places she had never named. It smelled like winter forest. It sounded like a heartbeat too large to be only hers. Kale. His pain hit her first. A burning silver wound. A wolf snarling in chains. A man holding death back with both hands. Then his fear. Not fear of dying. Fear of harming her. Nora gripped his shoulder. You ridiculous man. The wound smoked black. Silver poison pushed out like ink. Elswith packed herbs into torn flesh and shouted for hot water. Nora barely heard. Something brushed her mind. Not a word exactly. More like shelter. Found. Protected. Nora slapped Kale's chest. Do not get poetic in my head without permission. His eyes opened, weak but clear. You heard that? Felt it. Very rude. His laugh came as a pained breath. I am sorry. Be alive and sorry. For 2 days, Blackpine Keep smelled of smoke, herbs, wet wool, and worry. Kale slept in a chamber above the eastern wall, linen around his shoulder and fever sharpening his cold beauty. Nora sat beside his bed with a mending basket in her lap. She had meant to leave after the first hour, then after the first night, then after Elswith stopped looking as if Kale might die between breaths. She stayed. The mark on her neck remained tender. Sometimes it warmed when Kale dreamed. Once, near midnight, he whispered her name, and the loneliness behind it made Nora drop her needle. Matilda was settled in the stable below with oats, hay, and 3 soldiers assigned to protect her from assassination or boredom. Nora had not asked for reports, but Matilda gave them anyway. The blonde one walks like a disapproving spoon. The young guard fears me. Correctly. The hay is acceptable, though no one has apologized for the bowl. Nora relayed none of this to the room. When Kale finally woke properly, Nora was arguing with a maid over breakfast. Alpha King Thorn must have broth, the maid insisted from the doorway. Nora did not look up from the tray. Alpha King Thorn can have broth after he eats something that did not lose a fight with rainwater. From the bed came a rough voice. I like broth. Nora turned. You are wounded. Your judgment is not welcome. The maid fled with a hidden smile. Kale tried to sit. His muscles shook beneath the bandages. Nora crossed the room and helped him before he could pretend he did not need help. His skin was warm under her palm. The bond hummed, low and pleased. Nora glared at his chest. Stop that. His brows drew together, which only made the problem worse. Nora clarified that she meant the way he had arranged himself like a statue under linen. Kale repeated the word arranged with the bafflement of a man who had never considered his own torso a public inconvenience. Do not make me discuss your stomach before breakfast. For the first time since the attack, Kale laughed. It was brief and rough, but it filled the room like flame catching dry wood. Nora shoved a bowl into his hands. Nora told him to eat before she became sentimental. When he asked whether that would be dangerous, she warned him it would be dangerous for both of them. His smile faded when his gaze touched the mark on her neck. Guilt came through the bond before he spoke. He confessed that he had marked her in blood and fear. Nora admitted she had noticed both, and his guilt deepened because he believed she had deserved a clean choice. Nora sat on the edge of the bed. The movement made him go still, as if her nearness mattered more than his wound. "Kale, I am angry." Pain moved through him. She held up one finger. "Not because of the mark, because everyone keeps staring at me like I am either a miracle or a loose chicken." He answered with grave sincerity that she was not a loose chicken. Nora thanked him for his brave defense, then watched him make the mistake of leaning on the word mate as if it explained everything. "And you have known what that means from the start. I have not. You felt fate in my yard. I felt mud, cabbage grief, and concern for my goat." He lowered his eyes. Nora softened her voice, though only a little. "So you do not get to rush me because your wolf has already built a cottage in its head." Kale looked up. "A cottage? With curtains, probably. Wolves are secretly dramatic." The corner of his mouth moved. Nora stood before his hope could get too large. "But I am still here." Hope rose in him so quickly that Nora felt it under her ribs. "Careful," she said. "I said here, not married." Kale promised he heard her. Nora told him his wolf had better hear it too. His answer came with the faintest trace of humor. Apparently the wolf disliked lessons. "Then he will hate me." Kale looked at her, fever pale and unguarded. "He could never hate you." The words were too soft. Nora stood too fast. Nora ordered him to eat his eggs. Kale looked genuinely confused because there were no eggs yet, so she promised there would be once she bullied someone. She left before he could see her smile. That afternoon, Elswith dragged Nora to the council chamber. The room was round, windowless, and full of elders who looked born disappointed. Kale was not there. Nora suspected Elswith had chosen the timing on purpose. Cedric lifted his chin from his place beside the table. "Nora Bellwether, marked maid of Alpha King Kale Thorne, you stand before the Blackpine Council." Nora looked around the stone room. "I was told there might be biscuits." Elswith did not blink. "You were not." "Then I came under false hope." An elder woman leaned forward. Her voice carried the weight of law and a complete absence of humor. "You now know what we are. You will not reveal our existence to humans." Nora placed her hands on the table. "Yes, I gathered that from the blood, secrecy, and dramatic staring." The council shifted. Cedric's mouth tightened. Elswith looked almost entertained. The elder woman continued. She listed rules in a dry voice while Nora listened. "No outsiders in Blackpine territory. No speaking of wolves to priests, hunters, traveling judges, suspicious cousins, or anyone wearing too much silver. No wandering alone through the northern pass while Silver Veil remained active." Nora waited until the room expected obedience. Then she answered calmly, "I will keep your secret. I will learn your laws. I will not betray people who bled beside me. But I am not a chair, a crown, or a prize your alpha found in a cabbage patch." Silence took the chamber. Nora leaned forward. "The question of Luna can wait. The question of Nora comes first." Cedric blinked. She kept going before any of them could recover. "If one day I become Luna, it will be because I choose the work, not because everyone sniffed and agreed." Matilda's voice drifted from the courtyard below through the open vent near the ceiling. "Tell the blonde spoon he smells like fear and starch." Nora pressed her lips together. The scarred elder on the left frowned. "Is something amusing?" Nora looked at Cedric. "No. Continue." Elswith struck the table once with her palm. Well said. Cedric looked as if kindness hurt his teeth. For the record, she is difficult. For the record, you are blonde. The elder woman folded her hands. The council recognizes Nora Bellwether as protected under Blackpine law, bound to secrecy, and free to refuse Luna ceremony until she chooses. Nora lifted her chin. Now that is almost worth no biscuits. Before anyone could answer, a horn screamed from the outer wall. The Silver Veil pack had left a message at the gate, carved into the wood with a silver knife. Bring us the human mate, or the old river cache opens before the hunters. Nora read it beside Cale that evening. He was pale but upright, one shoulder still bound beneath his black tunic. Cedric hovered nearby like a blonde thundercloud. Elswith stood with her cane planted on the stone, her face unreadable. Nora tilted her head. Human mate. Better than goat girl, I suppose? Cedric made a strangled sound. This is not amusing. Neither are you, and yet here we are. Cale's gaze stayed on the carved words. Elswith explained the cache in the same flat voice she used for bad weather. There was an old store of silver weapons buried beneath the river shrine, sealed after the last hunter war. Blackpine had kept it hidden for a century. If Silver Veil opened it and led human hunters there, every pack in the northern valleys would be dragged into bloodshed. You will remain in the keep. Nora refused before the order had fully settled. Cale's eyes flashed silver, and the bond filled with the blunt terror of a man imagining every possible way she could die. He believed Silver Veil wanted to kill her to hurt him. Nora did not argue with that. She only suggested they make it difficult. Cale warned her this was not one of her village arguments. No. My village enemies write with better grammar. His fear hit her through the bond. Hot, heavy, desperate. He wanted to lock every door and stand before every blade. Nora touched his wrist. Nora reminded him that hiding her would not make her unmarked. Cale answered that it would keep her breathing, but she named the next threat, the next fire, and the next silver knife before he could argue. She was bait either way. At least this way, she could be bait with a plan. Cedric looked ill. I cannot believe I am saying this, he said, but she may be right. Nora turned to him. I dislike your surprise. Elswith's cane tapped once. Silver Veil will expect Cale at the old river shrine by moonrise. They will expect panic. Nora looked toward the stables. Excellent, we bring Matilda. Everyone stared. From below came one confident bleat. Nora smiled. What? She started this. Moonrise silvered the old shrine. Broken pillars stood above the river gorge. Ivy curled around stone wolves worn smooth by rain. The river roared far below, deep and cold. The wind smelled of wet stone, pine sap, and the metallic promise of violence. Nora stood in the center with Matilda's rope in one hand and a basket in the other. She wore a plain cloak, muddy boots, and the expression of a woman mildly inconvenienced by treason. Cale hid in the trees to her left. She could not see him. She could feel him. His worry moved beneath her skin. Nora sent back irritation. It seemed to comfort him. Matilda stood beside her with regal menace. If I die, bury me with apples. If you die, I will be too busy haunting people to arrange fruit. Matilda considered that. Acceptable. Figures slipped from the pines. Men and women in gray cloaks surrounded the shrine. Their leader was the pale-haired woman with the crossbow, tall and elegant, with eyes like dirty ice. You came, the woman said. Nora adjusted her grip on the basket. Your note was rude, but specific. The woman's gaze dropped to Matilda. You brought a goat. She insisted. Matilda chewed ivy. I am Celine of Silver Veil. Nora gave her a polite nod. Nora of I do not care. One of Celine's men snickered. Celine slapped him without looking. Nora made a note of that. Celine began circling her, voice smooth and cold. She spoke of bloodlines, strength, human weakness, Kale's ruined rule, and all the usual speeches made by people who mistook cruelty for a personality. Nora let her talk because vain people often mistook silence for surrender. Matilda sniffed the air beside Nora's knee. Hunter oil, church wax, silver dust. Bad woman has brought a whole cupboard of trouble. Nora kept her face blank. You brought human hunters into this, she said. Celine's smile sharpened. That was answer enough, but Nora needed the wolves hidden in the trees to hear it. She pressed harder, asking what happened after the hunters found the river cache. Celine was too proud not to explain. Hunters and priests would come. Human villages would burn in the panic. Wolves would die. Blackpine would fall, and Celine would take the northern packs under a banner of purified strength. Nora went very still. There it is. Celine's claws slid from her fingers. Celine demanded to know what Nora meant. Nora told her exactly. Celine had started sounding like every rotten lord who ever starved a village and called it order. Celine sneered that Nora knew nothing of power. I know people who talk about weakness usually mean anyone they can hurt without guilt. Celine smiled. Then you understand your position. Nora dropped the basket. Hard cheese wheels rolled across the shrine stones. For one ridiculous second, every werewolf looked down. Matilda's mind rang like a battle trumpet. Now. Nora yanked the rope. Matilda charged. The goat hit Celine's knees like a furry battering ram. Celine fell backward with a furious cry. Blackpine wolves exploded from the trees. Kale came last. The black wolf struck the clearing like a storm with teeth. Nora ducked as two wolves crashed over her head. A gray wolf snapped at her cloak. She swung a cheese wheel and cracked it against his snout. That was aged 6 months, you wasteful beast. Cedric, in wolf form, drove another attacker away from her side. Even as a wolf, he looked offended to be useful. Matilda raced through the chaos with shocking purpose. She rammed one attacker in the back of the knees. She bit another's cloak and dragged him over a cheese wheel. She stood on a fallen silver knife and refused to move. Nora felt a burst of pride so strong it was almost inconvenient. Apples for a week, she promised. Matilda's answer was breathless and fierce. 2 weeks. I am performing government. Across the shrine, Kale and Celine collided. Black wolf and pale gray wolf rolled over broken stone, claws flashing in moonlight. The bond flooded Nora with Kale's focus, pain, and one fierce command beating beneath everything. Protect. Celine shifted suddenly into human form and snatched a silver dart from her belt. She aimed at Kale's wounded shoulder. Nora seized a fallen knife wrapped in cloth and threw it. Badly. It struck the stone beside Celine and sparked. Celine flinched. That was enough. Kale struck. He pinned Celine to the ground with one massive paw at her throat. The clearing fell silent except for the river. One by one, Silver Veil wolves backed away. Kale shifted into human form, crouched over Celine, breathing hard. Blood streaked his ribs and shoulder. His silver eyes burned in the moonlight. He looked savage, beautiful, terrifying, and entirely without clothing. Nora tried not to look. She failed. Does no one here carry spare trousers? Cedric, human again and wrapped in a cloak, closed his eyes. Not now. This is a practical concern. Kale did not look away from Celine. Yield. Celine spat blood. You choose a human over strength. Kale's voice was quiet. No. I choose her because she is strong. Nora's chest tightened. Celine laughed bitterly and aimed her words where they would hurt. Nora would die old and human while Kale remained. Or she would turn and hate him for the monster she became. Kale's face changed for half a breath. Nora felt the fear through the bond. Would she leave? Would time take her? Would she hate him? Nora stepped forward. That is between us. Celine looked at her. And if I ever become a monster, Nora said, I plan to be an organized one. Kale glanced back. With excellent hair. His mouth curved despite the blood. But not tonight. Tonight I am human, marked, annoyed, and covered in mud. That will have to terrify you enough. Elswith stepped from the trees with iron chains. It terrifies me plenty. Celine was bound. Her wolves were disarmed. Blackpine guards moved through the shrine, gathering weapons and checking wounds while pretending not to notice their unclothed alpha. Nora found Kale near a broken pillar, wrapping a cloak around his waist. Matilda stood beside her, chewing victory ivy. Kale looked at Nora's bruised cheek. His eyes darkened. Who struck you? A man with poor balance. Matilda handled it. Kale looked at the goat. Thank you. Matilda bleated. Nora tranted before she could stop herself. Matilda believed she was owed a banner. Kale agreed too fast, and Nora warned him not to encourage royal livestock policy. Nora's hands began to shake now that danger had passed. She hid them in her cloak. Kale saw anyway. He lifted one hand. May I? Not touching. Asking. Nora stared at that hand. Large, scarred, strong enough to break bone, careful enough to wait. She stepped into him. Kale's arms closed around her. He smelled of blood, pine, and smoke. His heart beat hard against her cheek. The bond warmed until the cold clearing faded. You are bleeding on me, Nora said. Kale apologized immediately. Nora told him not to move, and this time the Alpha King obeyed without adding one noble, doomed syllable. She stayed there longer than dignity recommended. At dawn, Blackpine Keep woke to victory, rumors, and goat worship. By breakfast, half the soldiers had decided Matilda was a battle spirit. Someone hung a fresh green banner in her stall. Matilda accepted tribute with royal calm and immediately attempted to eat one corner. Nora entered the great hall in a clean blue dress borrowed from a maid. Her hair was braided over one shoulder to avoid the tender mark at her neck. A bruise colored her cheek. Her chin was high. The hall rose. All of it. Benches scraped, cups stilled. Guards, servants, elders, and wolves lowered their heads. Nora stopped in the doorway. If this is about the goat, I deny responsibility. Elswith smiled from the high table. It is about you. Kale stood near his chair, dressed in black, bandaged under his tunic. His face was still the face of a cold king, but Nora could feel the warmth beneath it now. The pack honors courage, he said. I mostly threw dairy. Cedric cleared his throat. With accuracy. Nora stared at him. Nora asked if that had been a compliment. Cedric called it a factual observation, so she decided to take it and warned him that being pleasant might frighten children. Laughter moved through the hall. Kale held out his hand. No one spoke the word Luna. No one demanded a vow, a ceremony, or a turning. No one asked Nora to stop being human before she had even decided what being marked meant. Kale only waited. Nora walked to him and placed her hand in his. The hall bowed. The mark warmed at her neck. Later she found him on the battlements, watching sunlight spread over the pine forest. Snow shone on distant mountain peaks. The morning smelled sharp and clean. Kale turned as she approached. Cedric says Matilda ate part of the Eastern Border Agreement. Nora leaned beside him on the stone. Nora asked whether the agreement had been well written. When Kale confirmed it had not, she declared that Matilda had served the realm. A laugh escaped him. This time he did not stop it. It rolled warm and low over the stone. Guards below looked up in shock. Nora watched his cold face change, watched the man beneath the wolf appear in morning light. Her chest ached, not with fear, something warmer. Nora told him he should do that more. Kale wondered if she meant laugh, and she agreed, though letting goats improve policy was also proving useful. His gaze softened. You make it difficult not to. Nora blamed the heat in her cheeks on the mark. The bond carried his amusement. Do not be smug inside my head. That was joy. The word was too honest. It slipped past every joke she had ready. Nora looked out over the forest. I am not ready to stop being human. Kale's hands curled against the stone. I know. I may never be. Pain moved through him, but he bowed his head. Then you will remain human. Nora's throat tightened. Kale kept his eyes on the trees because he seemed to understand that looking at her would make the moment too large to carry. I want the years you choose to give me, he said. I will not demand you buy them with a body you did not choose. The wind tugged at her braid. She looked away before her eyes could betray her. Nora called that dangerously sweet. Kale started to apologize, but she stopped him because she was collecting evidence that he was not entirely made of winter. His hand rested on the stone near hers, not touching, close. Nora moved her smallest finger until it brushed his. The bond brightened like a candle. Kale went still. Nora warned him not to make a face. Kale insisted he was not, but the bond betrayed the internal face with humiliating brightness. He turned his hand and gently caught her fingers. Take your time, Nora. Below, Cedric's horrified voice rose from the courtyard. Your Majesty! The goat is in the council chamber again! Nora and Kale looked down. Matilda stood beneath a shredded green banner, chewing what appeared to be official parchment. 3 guards surrounded her at a respectful distance. Nora sipped cider from the cup she had stolen from breakfast. She is participating in government. Kale looked down at the courtyard. She is eating my tax records. Then she has my full support. Kale laughed again. Nora smiled into the wind. She stood above the hidden keep, human, marked, unturned, and entirely herself. The forest whispered beyond the walls. Secrets breathed under the stones. Inside the bond, Kale's joy moved like sunlight through pine trees. Matilda's voice rose from below, muffled by parchment and pride. I require a title. Nora touched the mark at her neck. Fine fate, she said, but I am charging rent. If this story grabbed your heart, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss our next story. We'll see you in the next one.